Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women in Motorsports. Joe Samaniego here, along with Daniel Zeri from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. We're definitely going to be previewing the W Series, Barcelona, as well as talk about the European Le Mans Series, NHRA, and Rima Joffer's Le Mans 24-hour plans coming up. And, of course, a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark and Robin, for keeping us on the air. You too can invest in the Grid Network. Link to the Patreon page or buy me a copy of one-time contribution to the Grid Network. Any contribution will be greatly appreciated to keep us on the air. And Daniel, W Series, Barcelona, third round of the year, and we know Jamie Chadwick, she's trying to make it 3 in a row, 5 in a row. You count what happened in COTA last year with her 2 wins. Already we're seeing a lot of people are picking her for pick a winner. So far, I believe it's been unanimous with everyone on the air team and then through social media. When it comes to Jamie Chadwick, this last race weekend, yeah, she swept it, but she picked up the lead on race 1 last lap when Emma Kimmerlein locked up. She said after that race she wasn't the fastest, but she responded back in that second race. Do you believe Jamie Chadwick should be just a pure lock-in for the win, or do you think what we saw in race 1 where she wasn't the fastest might be this case in this race in Barcelona?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Joe, for having me. And yeah, I think that's a really good question. I mean, so far, Jamie is kind of the safe bet for the upcoming race, having won, as you said, all the last couple of races since the first one in COTA back in October. But that said, I think I wouldn't say that she's 100% going to win this one because there are a few more things to consider right now. Firstly, as we mentioned last week, it will be also the first week when we will have different cars for W Series. These are not the usual cars that raced in Miami. So the cars that, the same chassis. Of course, it's the same Tatus Formula 3 regional car, but we have different engines because, of course, these are the cars that were usually they were used in New Zealand for the Toyota Racing Series. So they are equipped with Toyota engines. And this is different. It makes something different. So let's say that they haven't tested these cars before. I think they did the seat, of course, but they haven't tested these cars, so it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. Also, it's going to be the first ever W Series race in Barcelona at Circuit de Catalunya. Of course, they did the preseason testing, so they all have some data on that specific track. Jamie, of course, knows what she's doing in Barcelona. It's not that she, that all of a sudden she's no more in contention for victory. But that said, I think we could potentially see some other drivers at the top. Emma Kimmerlein was fast in Miami, but of course she couldn't capitalize on her pace. So probably she is going to be one to watch this weekend because, of course, she will be. She will try to make up for the points lost in Miami. Also, Alice Powell, always very fast. She was very unlucky in race 1 in Miami when she put it into the wall after the clutch issue at the start. Also, we had Nerea Marti that was really fast in Miami, and she was also fast in testing, to be honest, in preseason testing. All the Spanish drivers, I would say. Also, Belén Garcia. Belén is originally from Barcelona, so she knows that track really, really well. She's basically racing in her home courtyard, and so probably she will try to get into the podium to claim her first podium in W Series. And a few others that were also pretty consistent at the top, both in testing and in the first race, in first rounds in Miami. So, of course, Jamie Chadwick is the one to beat. She proved it in Miami even when she wasn't outright the fastest. She was always there, and she took all the points and she's straight away leading the championships. But a few other drivers will try to make up for the lost points on the first doubleheader.
Yeah, the lost points from that first doubleheader, Jamie Chadwick got the max, 50 points. Everyone else only has one podium, where Jamie Chadwick was the only driver to get 2 points. And you bring up a really great point about this chassis. Yeah, same chassis, but it's going to be a little bit different for all the drivers and teams. And all the drivers essentially have tested here, raced here at Barcelona. This could be a track where, I know when it comes to Formula One, a lot of people criticize it. It's not exactly the most passing. Here, we're going to have a practice, then we're going to get qualifying. Do you think we're going to see a really close, bunched up field where everyone is just seconds from first to last? And will that mean that this race could be something where everybody knows the track and familiar with it? We could see quite a lot of action in this race for the W Series.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point in the grid probably being a lot closer together compared to the season opener at Miami. We saw the rookie drivers were a little bit struggling at the first race. Obviously, they're still trying, to learn some stuff. But most of them are from either from Formula 4 or straight from karting. So that was a pretty big jump for them. Having already preseason testing under their belt in Barcelona, that probably means that we're going to see a much closer grid at Barcelona. So no more big gaps towards the very front end of the pack and the second half of the grid. And as you said, for Formula One, this is a track that often doesn't provide a lot of spectacle, as a racing spectacle, probably. I think it's very fun to drive, to be honest, because it's very there are very different corners, so I think it's quite fun to drive. But probably it is true that it's not didn't provide such a great show in the past. But for that is not always the case for support series. For Formula 2 and Formula 3 in the past, there have been some great racing. So I think it will probably be the same for W Series. The cars are much shorter and smaller compared to Formula 1. And that is, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems of Formula 1 in these specific tracks, in the older style European tracks, which were designed for different cars, to be honest. So it probably the W Series is going to be much closer to a Formula 3 race, which we always saw some good passing opportunities, especially at the end of the straight, which is quite long. So the slipstream could be a little bit more helpful for W Series, even though the Tattoos chassis in the past we've seen that the slipstream is not making so much of a it's not so big as some other series, but I'm pretty confident that we will see some great racing in Barcelona for W Series and Formula 3 and Formula 2, which is for the first time they're all racing together.
Yeah, first time they're all racing together. It's going to be really interesting. And this race, I think, is going to be good, as you mentioned. Of course, we displayed the points standing a little bit ago. One of the drivers I think a lot of people are talking about has to be Nira Marti. Her and Belen Garcia had a pretty good start to the season, both of them, especially in the race 2, having great finishes. When it comes to especially Nira Marti going into this race weekend, she's raced all over. Could she easily be one of the favorites? And your opinion, is she one of the favorites to knock off Jamie, or do you think Emma Kimalainen and Alice Powell are still the ones to go out there and knock off Jamie for a win?
I think I don't know if Nerea is definitely going to be the one, but I think the ones that you mentioned, so Emma, Alice, and Nerea, are so far the stronger candidates to challenge Jamie. And of course, Nerea is Spanish. She has quite good experience in that track. She has raced this year before 2 times this year at Barcelona in GT Winter Series and in the Endurance Spanish Championship. So of course, not Formula cars, but she had also some good track time at Barcelona. And I do believe that she is going to be one of the favorites for this weekend. Maybe I'm not sure if for the victory, but for podium, that's for sure. She was second in Miami in race 2. Unfortunately, she got a post-race penalty, and she was demoted to third. But I think she will be again fighting for podiums. This is, in my opinion, I will be very surprised to see Nerea not fighting for the podium this weekend.
Yeah, second place in the points currently near, and then of course Bicycle Visser third right now in the points. And then it's really interesting. Once you get to fourth place, Abby Pulling, 20 points. She had a pretty strong late surge last year. When it comes to her in Barcelona, does she have a fair amount of experience in Barcelona compared to the rest? And do you think this could be a weekend where she makes a podium?
Good point. I think it was last year she had a very, very strong campaign, even though she had also raced in half of the race because she was a reserve driver. And in Miami, I would say that probably she was not on top of her game. She is a driver that has the talent to be on the podium on a consistent level. But even though she didn't have her strongest weekend to date, still she was consistently in the points, up there, making up some good positions. And as we see now, she's fourth in the in the points standing. So she is kind of like Jamie Chadwick, when she has not the best equipment for that specific race, when she has some kind of issues, she still is there scoring consistently. So this is going to be, especially in W Series with not so long calendar, I think that is a great skill to have from many of these drivers. And Pulling, if she has a strong weekend, she can definitely contest for a victory. So I believe that she might join the four that we just mentioned before. Chadwick, Marty, Powell, and Kimi Lainen. If she can sort out some of the technical troubles or that she had in Miami, where despite all these issues, she still was very strong and managed to score some great points for the championship.
Yeah, managed to great some score points for the championship, and overall, I think she's going to be one of the drivers to watch this race weekend. Of course, with the drivers to watch, that means it's time for pick a winner, because this is just a series where I feel everyone has to go with Jamie Chadwick, but I do believe there's another driver out there that could essentially knock off Jamie Chadwick from the top spot in the podium. Daniel, starting with you, who's your pick a winner for this W Series race?
So this is always a very difficult question. Nothing against Jamie. I think she's an outstanding driver. But for the championship, I do hope that we get to see some other drivers winning so that they can keep the championship battle alive. So I'm going to say Emma Kimilainen and Nerea Marti. Or Nerea Marti, sorry. So yeah, either of them. If I have definitely to pick one, I would go with Nerea this weekend.
You took my pick, so where last night there was unanimously Jamie Chadwick gets unanimously, we're going with Marty to get this one because second in the points, she's so in the pace in Miami. I think she could really come out. This is a great opportunity for her to just get in that new car, get the pole, take the win, and then game on for the championship. And it's going to be really exciting. Of course, W Series, they're going to be on Saturday morning for all of us here in the United States. And of course, we're going to recap the race on Grid Live this weekend. Now, one of the races I know you want to recap, Sophia Flores, European Le Mans Series. What a weekend they had, especially as we get closer and closer to Le Mans.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was in Imola for the 4 hour of Imola, the second round of the European Le Mans Series last weekend. And Sophia Flörsch had another really strong weekend in sports cars, in prototypes. I think she really has found her home in that car, in that Oreca LMP2 car. She's racing for Algarve Pro Racing. She was obviously making some headlines last month at Le Castellet when she was second. And scoring her second back-to-back podium, because of course she was also third in Portimao in the final round of last year. So she kind of started off really great for Flörsch. And coming into Imola, she was again trying to get onto that podium to keep that momentum. As you mentioned, we are approaching Le Mans, so this next round is going to be Le Mans, so the big race that everyone wants to win. And Flörsch had another really solid weekend in Imola, which was ultimately compromised by a series of unfortunate events. Sophia and Bent Viscal had some great qualifying, even though they were trying to get into the top 5. She told me, and then at in the final 10 minutes of the session, when it really counts, they had a problem in the box. So they couldn't get the cars out in time for when they really wanted. So they ended up in traffic. And that was really a disaster for them, because Sophia could only qualify in P15. And the sister car, which was also really fast, and they had topped all the practice session that, until that point, they were P7. So really unfortunate for Algarve Pro Racing with ending up in traffic. And so they kind of had to rebuild all the race during Sunday. 4-hour race, so they still had plenty of time. But Imola, we all know that it's not a track that is really easy to pass. So I also come into traffic with multi-class racing. That's always something that it's never easy. The first half of the race was Bent Viscal behind the wheel of the number 19 Oreca. And he had such a great first stint when he started from P15, and after like 30 minutes, he was already into top 6. He was already P6. Made up a lot of positions with great passes. He also took some risks at one point, when you never want to take that many risks in such a long endurance races, but they really had to gain those positions while the pack was still really compact. So he had to take some risks. It paid off. Unfortunately, they had a full course yellow, which was timing, didn't really play in their favor. And they had already pitted, so all the drivers behind them had the opportunity to pit under caution, and so they made some great time. They were back to P11, so Bent Viscal really had again to recover. But at the halfway point of the race, he pitted for the driver change, and he handed over to Sophia Flörsch as he was P6 again. So Sophia really had a big task to try to get onto the podium. She had told me the day before that she wanted a top 5. Top 5 was really the target that they were aiming for, even though they had the pace for a podium, because there are in this championship there are some great gold rated and platinum rated drivers in really strong teams. But Sophia and Bent Viscal, even though they are only, so to speak, 2 silver-rated drivers, they are really consistent on pace. They can lap basically all the race on the same lap time. So that's big in endurance racing. Coming both of them from single seaters, I think that also helped. And Sophia had a strong second half of the race as Viscal in the first one. She continued to make up some great positions, and at one point she was on the podium in P3. In the final hour, she was in P3. Then the team decided to pit under caution they tried a strategy that they had that it did paid off in Le Castellet in round 1. while here in Imola, it was kind of not the same, so it didn't pay off. So they pitted them on the caution. Hopefully they were trying to get some other yellow flags in the final hour, so they could make it to the finish. They could not, so they had to pit again. And so they did pit again, but then Sofia was back to P9, managed again to went into up to P5, and when there were 7 to 6 minutes to go, she was P5, like safe and like a certain top 5, and she was also closing in on the 2 cars in front for the 3rd and 4th placed LMP2 cars, which were battling among themselves. So she had the opportunity to close in and probably try to take that podium again. And a big piece of debris, of carbon debris, stuck into her front left tire. So tire puncture with 6 minutes to go. Not great news for her. Had to pit down to 8th. So not the ending that she wanted, but starting from P15, I think they, and especially she proved again that even when they don't have like a perfect weekend, they can still be in the top 5 and contesting for a podium. So taking the positives out of this weekend, we can say that coming into Le Mans, if this is the pace that they're proving, that they're showing, it's gonna be probably a good Le Mans for them.
It's going to be very exciting, Le Mans. And of course, Le Mans just a little over a month away in France. And of course, subscribe here to the Grid Network. We'll be following all the sports car action and have a big special announcement prior to the 24 hours of Le Mans. Over here in the United States, one of the big races this past weekend was in the National Hot Rod Association, where Brittany Force got her 3rd major win of 2022. This was coming off essentially a race where she didn't get a win, but here's the thing: we're only 7 races in the season, and she already has 3 wins. She got an 81-point lead over Steve Torrence in the Top Fuel point standings, and that is huge considering that when you win a race, it's 100 points. Runner-up, 80 points. In every position after that, 20-point increments. So she has a nice, healthy lead, and that is something where she hopes to keep this lead because it was a big win for her at Virginia Raceway. The next race for the NHRA will be in New England for the New England Nationals, June 3rd through the 5th. So it's going to be a little bit of a break for them, but they'll be back. And of course, another driver that has the points lead in her class in the National Hot Rod Association is Erica Enders in Pro Stock. She has an 82-point lead, with just 1 point more than what Brittany Force has. Of course, they did not race this past weekend at Virginia, but they will be racing again sometime shortly. And then, of course, over in Kansas, we had the ARCA Menard Series and the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. And the ARCA Menard Series, this is where we had a really fantastic showing from 2 drivers, Amber Balkin and Tony Brenner, both of them coming home with top 10 finishes. Overall, great effort considering Kansas is not one of the most easier track when it comes to 1.5 ovals. It is notorious for, if you're not handling, you're going to go to the back, or worse, you're going to end up in that concrete wall. Amber Balkin, she came home in 9th place with Tony Brenner right behind her in the Venturini 25 Toyota. Now, this race, overall, we saw quite a good amount of racing, and there was a couple crashes. One of the big things, of course, on Grid Encore, Billy Venturini, the owner of Tony Brenner, getting sort of a very heated interview on television. So we encourage everyone to check out Grid Encore. You can just subscribe to us right here in the Grid Network and follow all of our programs as we cover a bunch of racing. And of course, the Truck Series were there. And this is the racetrack where Hailie Deegan made her Truck Series debut at Kansas Speedway. This race, though, she started 12th, hoping to get a top 10 finish. It just didn't work out for her. She came home 24th place, a couple laps behind the leaders. And overall, this season has not been going exactly well for Hailie Deegan. Last year, she had 1 top 10 finish. This year, she hasn't had a top 10 finish yet, and right now, 27th in the points. She is not as low as she was earlier in the year when she was near the 35th position in the point series for the trucks. However, now 27th, still got some room to improve. Hopefully, we'll see that in a couple of weeks' time for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. So overall, busy day of racing here in the States this past weekend. And Daniel, I know we talk about Europe, the United States. We had some big news coming from Saudi Arabia that could potentially see a driver with the Saudi flag in Le Mans.
Oh yeah, that's a news that came out yesterday. Rima Jafali, the first ever female racing driver from Saudi Arabia, she is launching her own team, Theba Motorsport. So, pardon me if any Saudi, for my pronunciation. But yeah, she of course she's coming from single seaters. She did Formula 4 and British Formula 3 in the UK in the last couple of years. She started her racing career pretty late, but then she really made some good progress. And this year she switched to GT racing for the first time. She's racing for the first full season in GT3 in GT Open. International GT Open is pretty good championship to start out in GT3. And she's starting her own team with the big goal of racing on the 24-hour of Le Mans with her team with the Saudi flag. So that could potentially be the first Saudi team in Le Mans. And I think Rima is really ambitious and determined, and she can do that because we've seen her for the first time in a 24-hour race back in January with the 24-hour of Dubai, and she was second straight away. First time in a GT3 car, she was second in class. So I think, and of course in GT Open, first round of GT Open, she had 2 victories in Pro-Am. So that's a great start already, and with her own team, I think this is going to be really exciting for Rima Jafali. She doesn't have yet a program of when to be in Le Mans. It's not that specific yet, if it's going to be 3 years, 5 years time. But I think she is really making it step by step, and with the first year in GT Open, which this weekend will be in Le Castellet for the second round of the season. I think that's a great project that we will be following closely.
And of course, we encourage everyone to visit the website racersbehindthehelmet.com. There you can follow the story about Jafali's launching her motorsport campaign in sports car, as well as other stories we haven't had a chance to talk about. But definitely we encourage everyone to visit racersbehindthehelmet.com. Link in the video description. Of course, Tatiana Calderon. Dan, I've got to ask you really quickly. Excuse me. Tatiana Calderon, she led a lap during the Indy GMR Grand Prix. Overall, she had a pretty good race, but we know there was contact. She lost some ground. Thoughts on what Tatiana did, especially leading the lap? And she said she was having fun in this race, considering we saw wet, then dry, then back to wet. Just amazing effort from her.
Oh, that was a super tricky race, with all the weather conditions changing from one lap to the other. And she was like masterful driving in that car when she's just a fourth race for her in INDYCAR. And wow, I was really happy for her because that was a really solid race, never a mistake. Until one of the final restarts when McLaughlin spun just in front of her, and she had contact. And she went on the gravel together with also Rael and Alex Rossi, I believe. So she at that point she was P11, and then went back to P17, and then still managed to get into the top 15. So as you said, she said that she had fun. And it's really, noticeable how she's making progress weekend after weekend. She had struggled in some of the other tracks, but now if she can keep that progress, I think we're going to see Tatiana consistently towards. If she can go towards the top 10, that would be mega for her rookie season. I sent her a message the day after, just congratulating her, and she replied that she was so happy that she was able to finish there, and she said it's a big challenge. Now I'm not quoting, but the meaning was, it's a big challenge, but I'm up for the task. I'm up for the challenge. I might try to to keep that progress.
Yeah, big challenge, especially when you're running in the rain. Rookie season. I mean, we've seen drivers like Callum Ilott, a bunch of drivers come here and say IndyCar is a beast of its own. I mean, Roman Grosjean, but they say this makes it fun. So to hear she's having fun and progressing is really good. And of course, when it comes to some notable rain events, Road America, we know that could be a track where we've seen weather. It could be very tricky. We've had a couple of Honda Indy Toronto Grand Prix races where they've seen some wet weather, and that's a street course. That could be really something else. And of course, some of the big other races as well too. They're going back to Indy, the road course, in July, and then a race we're going to be following, Grand Prix of Portland. One of the best finishes under the wet weather happened right here at Portland. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities if rain events is somewhere where she could really show her stuff. It's going to be very exciting for Tatiana Calderon. I know we are all out of time, but I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Once again, big thank you to our Patreon. Link in the video description to subscribe to our monthly Patreon page or do a buy me a coffee, a one-time contribution for the Grid Network. And of course, click on the link to public.com, $5 in free stock if you use a referral code GridNet. Definitely something we encourage everyone to check out. And tonight, we're going to have another special Grid Tonight program where we're going to recap the IndyCar practice again. Tatiana Calderon, she's not racing the oval, so she's not participating at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for this year, but hopefully maybe next year we could see her at the greatest spectacle of all sports, the Indianapolis 500. Dan, before we go off the air, any big races you're going to be following this weekend?
Well, apart from W Series, of course, at Barcelona, we were going to also follow DTM with Esme Hockey, which is racing at Lausitzring in Germany. Then, of course, also the SRO GT World Challenge America, where Erin Vogel and also there will not be Samantha Tan because, of course, she's missing this round because of the disruption in the logistic chain that all around the world, is creating some mess. She is always traveling around the world with her cars, so it was a little bit of a challenge for her. So unfortunately, Samantha is missing this round. But yeah, and hopefully some great other championship that we will report next week.
Yeah, very exciting week of racing ahead, and definitely, of course, W Series. That's going to be one we'll be following right here on the Grid Network, and of course, we'll be back on the air next week. We recap W Series as well as some of the other big races from around the world. For Dan's area, Racers, the girls behind the helmet. I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.